Good evening and welcome once again to the Lotus Flower Podcast. Everyone, I am so excited about this podcast. Wherever you are, we are here to celebrate resilience, growth, and to help you to live your very best lives here in the Lotus Flower Podcast space. As you know, our podcast motto is the flower that blooms in adversity is the greatest of them all. This motto is deeply rooted in the theme tonight, burnout, and the opportunities that can still emerge from it. Now, before we dive into this transformative episode, let's reflect on the symbolism of the lotus flower. It is a flower that is central to our podcast. The lotus flower, it begins the journey as a tiny seed. It's buried deep in the muck and the mire at the bottom of a pond. And in that dark, mucky water, it's easy to imagine that nothing could ever grow there. And yet, that seed, that tiny little seed, is able to take root and it pushes through the muck and the mire for the surface. And it reaches the surface. And when it reaches the surface, guess what? It blooms and it blossoms to this beautiful pink and white flower. And then at nighttime, it actually goes back under that muck and mire, and just to reset itself, to reset and recharge and refocus. And then it blooms back once again, pushes past all the muck and the mire and the dirt, and it emerges once again as this beautiful pink and white flower that's untarnished. So, what's even more remarkable about that lotus flower is that each night, like I said, when it returns back under that water and it disappears into that darkness, morning comes, just like your morning is coming after burnout. That morning comes and that flower is fresh and it's renewed and it's blooming and it's blossoming and it's able to actually be refreshed and recharged. And actually, you would wonder, how could that have been? How could that happen? Well, this podcast this evening, we're going to tell you just how that can happen. How can something that looks like it's burned out and just all washed up, how can that happen that it can relive again? Now, tonight, we're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about how it begins. We're going to talk about the impact that it has on our lives. Most importantly, how can we push through the darkness? How can you find out about new opportunities and new purpose? Well, thank you for asking. And thank you for joining this conversation tonight, because I have a guest who is here and he exemplifies resilience and transformation. None other than Mr. Wayne Bond. Mr. Bond is an educator with 14 years of experience helping leaders achieve their goals outside of education. Mr. Bond is an anointed, Carmela, take her downstairs, an anointed leader. He transformed, Carmela, take her downstairs. Wayne is an educator with 14 years. Excuse me, my sound went out there. Wayne is an educator with 14 years of experience helping achieve their academic goals when he works with leaders and he mentors students. Outside of his education, he is a content creator, sharing the love that he has for reading through his YouTube channel, Wayne Bonds, and the Runaway Warlords YouTube channel. He is a storyteller, a dog lover, and someone who has navigated his own journey of burnout and renewal. Wayne, welcome to the Lotus Flower Podcast tonight for the third time. I am super excited to have him here this evening. And now I will bring him forward. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Wayne Bond.
Good evening. How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Excellent.
Welcome,
Excellent.
welcome, welcome back for the third time. You
I
must
know.
be
I didn't realize it was the third
coming on
time.
3 times here.
Didn't realize it. Like when you
Okay.
said that and I was in the back room, it was like, wait a second. Wait, what? Okay. Three
Yes.
times. All right.
And guess
That's
what?
good to know.
Guess what? You were one of my very first guests when I first started. It's been like, this is going on my 3.5 years.
Happy
So,
anniversary.
well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so this evening, I am so happy to have you here. And I want you to just go ahead and greet our guests and however you might feel led to.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening and hello. Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Wayne Bond, and I am an educator and a storyteller. I like the storyteller part of it. I'm someone who is now transitioning through a big period in life, going from working in higher ed to working more in things where I'm wanting to work one-on-one. In education, we're starting to see a little bit of a disconnect downstream with a lot of older students. So I'm wanting to work a lot younger and work with individuals downstream to start working with them so they can start achieving goals and getting to where they want to be ahead of time. As many people can probably see from The Office and from people who have been around from earlier shows, did have a move. So I'm in a brand new studio. So I was able to nerdify it, which has been really fun in this big transition from working in higher ed and being this esteemed person to working one-on-one, just helping students read, which has been very, very gratifying, which is another reason why I think this conversation is well needed and well timed. I definitely want to figure out when my last visit was. That would be an interesting one. So now I could be able to say, this happened then and this happened then. But yeah, just really glad to be a part of the show and really excited for an in-depth conversation about how you can identify burnout, maybe in just like little bits of pieces of life that are happening, as well as being able to say, all right, I need to step away, as well as even letting yourself listen to what's happening around you and allowing that to maybe impact your decisions and how you move forward and things like that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Wayne. Now, I want to share something that you didn't know I was going to share. And
Okay.
it is about one of your channels that I am just so passionate about. And it is Wayne Reads. As I was preparing for this discussion tonight, and I was looking over your YouTube channels, when you first came on, you talked about Wayne Reads, your channel where you read stories to children over the YouTube. So I was able to get a little piece of information about that. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share it with the audience. So
Yeah, sure.
I want to give you a shout out. So it says, this is talking about your YouTube channel, Wayne Reads. It says, hello and welcome to Wayne Reads. This channel started off as a fun accident. While working on another YouTube project, my friend asked me if I could make an impact. And after months of pondering, I got a chance. With many friends that teach in public education, one day I was asked to read to a class in Arkansas virtually. Ms. W's class was inspiring, and here we are. Wayne Reads. And never forget, For the greatest adventures of a lifetime, always follow the North Star. And these are some milestones from your channel. January 1st, 2022, you had 50 subscribers. October 29th, 2022, you grew to 100 subscribers. June 17th, 2023, you had 200 subscribers. July 5th of 2023, you had 250 subscribers. And as of January 9th,
Which is weird.
2025, you have
Crazy.
500 subscribers to your channel. And the channel address for you all is at Wayne Reads. So I want you all to check that out, and especially those of you that have children, because you will not be disappointed. I am so happy to be able to shout that out, because I remember when you were back there with those 50 subscribers. Yeah.
It feels like just yesterday, but then when you put the dates behind it, it's like, oh yeah, that was a thing. And it's funny because we're well on our way to 600, hopefully closing in on that by mid-February. And it's interesting because in that February, Black History Month, so a lot of my stories will be about Black women throughout history. So I'm really excited about all those to really come out. And then I've found a lot of success, and this is part of the burnout conversation too, is trying out new things. Yes. And I tried out just shorts with poems, and it's just apparently the voice and the poems work. It's been very fun. It's been very fun.
And so the shorts are, tell our audience, for those that may not know what shorts are.
Oh, perfect. So I guess the best way of putting it is that with a lot of videos, they may be 2 minutes, 3 minutes longer, streams in this format, but shorts are really the ones that are more horizontal, like your phone, and that are roughly 10 seconds to 59 seconds. It's a really compartmentalized video. TikTok is the best way of explaining it, how that type of video resonates. And it's been very, very fun because the shorts have been a really good way for people to visit the channel. And when they find the channel, they're like, oh, there's all this other stuff. So I did not realize that Shel Silverstein was so popular. And now I'm like, okay, thankfully he has a lot.
And now you know. So, and then before we move into the discussion, I do want you to tell us a little bit more about the other channel that you have as well.
Oh, perfect. So per that, I have 2 channels. First one, well, my heart really is the Wayne Reads. But my other, which is really just the nerd in me really wanting to come out, is the Runaway Warlords. Okay. I'm a fan of One Piece, which is one of the longest running manga of all time. And in my opinion, one of the best stories of all time. And that's because it can be interpreted so many different ways, which for me is what truly makes a great story, is that so many people can see it and take different things from it. So in that, I stream every Sunday with my buddies. It's just guys being dudes, just joking and talking about stuff that I've been reading since I was 19 years old. And at 37, yeah, at 37 is one of those where it's just like, okay, yeah, it's been well over 3/4 of my life. So, and it's one of the reasons I am who I am and how I've managed a lot of these crazy things in life. So, with that channel, it's been a really good way for me to just decompress, let some of the nerd stuff out. Pokemon here. There's different travels to different locations up there. Some memorabilia back here. So very much a nerd of the people.
Yes. Now we're going to transition here, but you keep saying a nerd of the people, and you were able to let the nerd stuff out, and you redesigned your studio because you were able to do some nerd things. So you mean, now you know I am going to ask you this. You mean a Black man could be a nerd?
It's almost like Black people are their own people, and it's not like a monolith or anything.
You're not a monolith?
No. I have my own feelings and opinions. I don't necessarily. I had a rebellious phase when people were like, "Oh, you played basketball, right?" And I was like, "Nah, swimmer." Just hit that backstroke, and just the look on their face, and I was like, "Yeah, that's how stupid your question is."
Okay.
Part of it is because I'm tall. I'll admit it, but it's also like, okay, all right. So that's that's one of the understandings of I'm my own person.
Okay,
I read more than I watch sports. Yes, I'm all into the NFL playoffs right now, but I'm also definitely going to be going through a lot of this stuff later on. So
that's
um,
that's good.
I'm a book person, and I like that.
That's good. And thank you for allowing me to share that because I had to shout that out because I want people that are watching it because this platform primarily is for African American people, but all people are welcome to watch. And so I just want us to know that we don't have to be a monolith, meaning that we don't all have to be the same. There's all different types and all different cultures and belief systems and whatnot of African American people. So go after your dream. Don't let anyone stop you from doing your dream.
Just
Tonight,
because you're blank.
that's because you black. That's right. Amen to that. So, so tonight, as we talk about this exciting topic, I always ask my guests when I invite you all on, I say, well, I'm coming to you because I want you to come on the podcast, but I want the topic to be something that you want to talk about. So I always ask my guests to pray about or think about what topic resonates with them at the time. And so after you thought about it a while, you came back with an email letting me know this topic that you wanted to talk about. And the topic is about burnout, about burnout. And I said, would that be a good topic when I thought about it? And I said to myself, yes, that would be an excellent topic about burnout because it covers so many areas of our lives. So the topic of burnout is what we're talking about this evening. But I want to ask you, Wayne, can you tell us why did you select that topic?
I select that topic because I personally am at a crossroads of burnout in so many different aspects. Burnt out at work, burnt out at trying to maintain um, a facade, if you will, of the cool individual in a lot of circumstances. And with a lot of that, of one trying to maintain a job that not necessarily, it wasn't the for you thing. I loved what I did. It was just maintaining accountability where there was no accountability, which was just putting me in a situation where I didn't like who I was, as well as maintaining who people or what I should be doing. And that's another reason why letting the nerd kind of come out has been big, because if, for example, if I'm ever on an important conference call, I could just blurt out the screen. Like, no one really has to know what's happening behind the screen. And it's nice. It's nice to be able to say it's okay to be happy and let your hair down. And being able to understand you don't always have to be on. You can make mistakes. And I think that's also the big one, is understanding that not only can you make mistakes, it shouldn't be bad to apologize for making mistakes. Another big thing that's really been under a big thing for me is because it's not only admitting that I was wrong or I messed up, it meant that I may not have maintained a promise. And I'm someone who, while being an independent person and wanting to do my own thing, am true to my word. I was raised by parents of the military where you say what you mean and you mean what you say. So I take that very, very seriously. So when I do push myself to these extremes where I really don't need to, it leads to severe burnout. And that comes in many different aspects. So for me, especially, where I'm coming to a point in life where it's like, you know what, be a nerd. Does that mean you're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z? Yes. Does that mean that stepping away from the things that burn you out does not allow you certain avenues and just benefits? Yeah, and it does. But does that mean that you're also happier? It's crazy to say that in multiple times since leaving different opportunities that I've had, people have said that I'm noticeably happier, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Especially months later to understand how much that really was taking a toll, and how people really interpret where you are now as opposed to where you were when you were at your peak. When I'm now just saying I'm pretty peak right now, like I'm doing pretty well, not financially or anything like that, but more like spiritually and emotionally and physically, like yeah, and mentally, by far.
And mentally by far. So isn't it amazing that when we're on autopilot and we're doing these jobs and we're just like every day, almost like a robot. We get up, we know exactly what we're going to do. We get our coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, you feed the pets, because I know you have two beautiful dogs. So you'll feed the pets, and you'll do whatever else that routine is. And then before long, you're there at the job, and you're just like a robot. You're going through the motions, and you just really kind of put your real self on the shelf. And you do this. You said 14 years here. You do it and you do it and you do it. And we don't even realize that we're maybe at the point of burnout, because we're in, yes. And it might take others, like you said, to recognize that. And they recognized it in the way that they're saying, man, you seem so much more happier at this time in your life. And you recognized it and said, oh, even though I might have took some L's, the G's that I got, meaning the gains that I have, because I took those L's and I decided to transition out of that burnout place, it has actually been a place where I have regained myself, my actual self, and my deep love for Kevin. I mean, my deep love for Wayne. I'm sorry.
You do a lot of these. I got it.
Yes. Okay, good. So I want to talk about some key talking points. Let's transition into some key talking points. Now, Wayne, the lotus flower, that is the motto of my podcast. And just like the lotus flower, this flower starts as this really small little seed. And oftentimes when it starts so small, just like burnout, it's barely noticeable, isn't it?
I like that.
Just like this little seed that's in this muddy, murky water, it's underneath there. And guess what? The perspectives are down low, and the early signs are not even there yet. But guess what? That little small seed is headed toward burnout. It is headed toward burnout. So let me tell us a little illustrative story. I can think back to a time a friend of mine was in the field with me. I'm a mental health therapist by trade. And in my field, we have a high rate of burnout. And so she felt like she was drowning in the mud, that she didn't notice it at first. It started out with her saying, yes, I got so many cases on my caseload, and I'm staying up late here at work. I'm taking work home consistently. I'm pushing myself, missing opportunities with my loved ones and family and friends. And she thought, well, I'm doing such a good job. And my employer, they're giving me raises. I am just really happy. But do you know what? Over time, do you know that completely drained this lady? It drained her to the point where she had to transition from being a mental health therapist. Right now, she's no longer even working in our field. It was too much for her. The little things that started off so small, and they compounded on each other. Now, Wayne, I want you to talk to us tonight about how you may have experienced any gradual build up of burnout in your own life.
Oh, it's one where it was more noticeable when I was done with working in how I spent my time, because I have all these hobbies. I have multiple podcasts. I have all this editing. I read. I have video games, and I would literally just come home and sit. Mm-hmm. Like it would just be, ugh.
Oh my!
And it was something to the effect of you just wanted to just be a blob, just fade away kind of thing. And it was very noticeable because there were times where I want to do these things. I want to go out. I want to do this, but you're just too emotionally tired to get over that hump. And that was that's how I started to understand that buildup. Also understanding and not necessarily taking it at face value, but when people in the office and in your working environment, especially those who are peers, are like, oh yeah, this job is okay, your job's the worst, and like it's like everyone is noticing that, it's one of those where it's not just you. And in many times you may think it's not, it just might just be me. I just got to keep hustling on. See, or we just work hard and not put your head down and keep going. And just thinking that it's normal, and it's not normal. And even in hearing that when other people articulate it, yeah, it may be normal that people work hard and have difficult jobs and have different jobs, but it's not normal that everyone is like, okay, your job is like the worst. Like, this is crazy. So also having to at least listen. And I think that's the biggest thing. Having, being able to engage and be out in the world, and having people that are around you just articulate things that in the moment may not seem, oh, is this or is that? It may not seem something to the effect, but over time and thinking back, this is maybe getting saying something out loud, and it may be taking it out of context because you were too tired to really even have a cognitive thought and speak it out loud. But you're just, again, going by the motions, and at the end of the day, you're just a walking blob. And having people just articulate, what are you talking about? What's going on? So there's just so many different factors of recognizing burnout, whether it's literally being told to your face things are difficult for you, that personal understanding, especially when you go home and you're trying to decompress and you literally can't outside of just existing, as well as just other people who meet you in for the first time and get an understanding of someone who is just like exhausted, but you can't see it. So it's very interesting when recognizing burnout, because since everyone's different, there's many different ways of it affecting you. But that's just a few that anyone can really internalize.
That's excellent. That is excellent. And I hope that those that are watching this evening, I see you out there, and welcome you all. Go ahead and type anything you want in the chat if you feel led to. And I want you to be able to recognize some of the things that Wayne is sharing and see if it resonates with you. This could be just what you need to hear tonight to start doing some things about maybe the way you're feeling right now. You could be feeling as though you're at wit's end. You could be feeling as though you're just a walking blob. You could be feeling very tired and taxed, but at the same time, you have such a commitment to your job and a commitment to your career that you're willing to actually sell your own self short. And I know we have to work hard for our employers or whatnot, but at the end of the day, we've got to have ourselves. If we don't have our own selves and sound mental health and emotional health, then we're not going to be good for the job anyway. So I want you all to take this very seriously tonight. We're going to transition to that next point about the impact of burnout on daily life. Now, once burnout sets in, it's like submerging from that murky water that I talked about, from the pond, we're unable to see the light above the surface. So that little seed is down there underneath that muck and mire and dirt. Imagine, how is he going to see what's going on? That's like burnout. When it's down low and it really hasn't taken a full toll on us, it's hard to recognize. So it just at that time, it may not be affecting your work. However, just give it time. After giving it time, you'll start noticing your relationships dwindling. We won't be able to be effective, like Wayne said when he was talking, and it just didn't even make sense, saying certain things and talking with colleagues and just kind of going through the motions. Health is challenged, and just an overall sense of your well-being starts to wax and wane. So, Wayne, what have you observed about how burnout impacts people's daily lives?
Well, I think the biggest things are that you miss out on a lot of things that are happening around you, especially those that are really, really important in that time frame. Um, Perfect example, burnout. And I've been dealing with burnout on and on throughout work, and in some cases, life, to where I just didn't notice what was happening with, like, with pets. Um,
Mhm.
just and then you turn around and look around and it's like, oh, you're getting gray under your chin, buddy. Like, when did that happen? Like, it just hits. It's just like that. You're my boy. Um, Also, in meeting people, I unfortunately missed out on a really cool person just because I was so burnt out and did not have the time to really be myself around them.
Mhm.
But from that experience this last summer, I now understand that I now understand burnout, what work and burnout does to me. And it's
Mhm.
understanding that I don't want to be in that situation anymore. So even though I missed out on a really cool opportunity,
Mhm.
it's one that I can at least understand moving forward. Even though I'll probably never talk to her again,
Yes.
I I understand that that was a situation that I was not myself, and I don't want to ever be in that situation again. So
Yes.
I learned a lot.
And you know what I would like for you to see that as, and others that are listening, I want you to see that as a growth opportunity. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's difficult, but it has to happen. And if you want to grow, as someone who's 6'5" and had growth spurts and they hurt like a
Okay.
mother, like, you understand. It to
Okay.
grow, you're gonna have to grow. You're gonna have to develop a little bit.
And
Gonna
life,
hurt.
and listen, life be life, and don't it?
Life be lifing.
That's right.
Life be lifing.
And when life is life, and you got to take some L's, that means take some losses. And when you're taking those losses, I want you and I want everyone that's watching to see that as a growth opportunity. We're going to reframe from thinking negative to thinking positive. Things that come that we may not like, and it looks like it's adversarial, it doesn't have to be. We can
Mm,
turn it around and see that in a new light. The impact of burnout is what we're talking about today. And we're talking about it. It happens daily. This right here on the screen, it says the impact of burnout on daily life. That means not just last month, not just last year, but we're saying that this stuff is going on every day that we wake up. This burnout is
hmm
happening every day. And so, if that is the case, I want to share this illustrative example. Research was published in the Journal of Applied Psychology, and it found that burnout increases the risk of anxiety and
Oh,
depression by 50%. Can you believe that?
I can't. Yeah.
Yes. I once had a client who described feeling like she was living on autopilot. Okay. She was at work, she was working, her body was there, Wayne, but her mind and everything was not even present. She wasn't
hmm
even present. And this was happening to this woman on a daily basis. Now, Wayne, have you ever encountered someone just like this lady who felt that they were like going through the motions? And how did they find their way back? And I know you've mentored thousands of people over the course of your career and all. So, can you weigh in on that for us this evening?
I mean, I was one of those. So it's one of those aspects where I don't even have to imagine a student or a learner that I've worked with. It's the day to day monotony of it, to the point where you sometimes forget to eat, and
Mhm.
that's a really real thing.
Mhm.
And then people are like, "Oh, my head hurts," and all of this. Well, have you eaten yet? Like,
Mhm.
there's so many different things. Have you had any water? You're dehydrated. So,
Mhm.
and that's another part of that aspect of it's just you miss out on those little details of just living that you should know. But again, the anxiety and the depression just really allows that filter to really cloud your vision, if you will.
That's right. It clouds the vision. And then if we don't have adequate mental health, it's not going to work. Liken this to a computer. Many of us have desktop computers, and with our desktop computers, they have these towers, right? This tower that's right there next to it on the floor, and you might have yours on the desk. That particular tower plugs into the monitor. And if that tower and monitor, if they're not talking to correctly, if there's anything that's malfunctioning between the two of them, especially the tower, the computer ain't going to work, because the tower is the brain. And that's just like our brain. If our brain is messing up and I want to use my arms and my legs and my mouth, and I want to speak articulately when I go out in public, or I'm leading a group, or if I am actually at a workshop and I'm presenting there, and if I'm doing a presentation and I want to be effective and have people really take in what I'm saying, if my brain is full of 50% of anxiety and depression, am I going to be effective? The tower that controls me, am I going to be effective? And the answer is no. So that is what the impact of burnout will do. And I heard Wayne say sometimes burnout happens to the degree that we just even forget to eat. That means we just are so busy, so caught up in life. Our intentions are good, and we mean well, right? But we're killing ourselves. We're basically killing ourselves, aren't we?
Oh, literally. And I did want to elevate. There looks like Kevin Andrews made some comments in the stream. I didn't know if we wanted to include those in the conversation.
Yes, why don't you address those if you could?
Oh yeah. Well, he had just mentioned, what do you do when you emotionally burn out? And that's the part of that impact of burnout on a day-to-day life. Me personally, I'm walking my dogs to a crazy extent, to the point where I just moved into a new neighborhood and they're like, "You're out again?" And I'm like, I'm lucky to see you again. Okay. Because it's getting me out of that sitting and the stewing. It's the movement and being outside, especially with them. Because no matter who I am, no matter what titles I have, no matter what I accomplish, they don't care. So being able to ensure I have my time with my boys, it's just like they're wagging their tails no matter what. So that's a really good thing for me. So emotionally, that's kind of has been the go-to the last few months. And that's really just because I haven't really had the time to get back into writing. I haven't even really had the time for reading and all of those things. So now that I've stepped away from the university, I'm working in a nonprofit now where my hours are just the set and it's only this time. I'm looking forward to, I can start reading at 4 and then crash at 8 and not have to worry about, we need you at this meeting or you have to be here. And that was the difficult part, because emotionally, like I was afraid to plan stuff because I almost had to take a conference call from Japan once. And I'm like, I can't do this, guys. I've been planning this for months.
Yes.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yes. And I know that you are an avid world traveler. So I would imagine that this has freed up some time. I know that you are an avid world traveler, and I've heard about some of your trips from Carmela, my daughter that you mentor. She just is so impressed when you're in Japan. She's like, you know what, Mom? Wayne is in Japan right now, and he's over in Italy right now. And she has told me of some of the exploits that you've done, and even with your mom and your sister. Now, I'm bringing that up because if you're burnt out, or if that job is so taxing to the degree that it has a grip on you, you're not going to be able to, you might go over there, but can you go over there and actually unwind and enjoy while you're there? Or are you thinking about the job?
You said that. I'm so glad you said that, because in Japan, Japan was a life-changing trip. However, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I have to go back to that. I have to go back to that. And it left an impact and didn't just take away from the trip, but it had a tinge on it. My family and I, all my mom and sister, we just went through Europe for 12 days over the holiday. And I even remember thinking if I was still in that job, in that situation, I would be frustrated because I would be thinking about going back to it and the work that would need to be done.
See?
And it's all and it's acknowledging that the frustration and burnout that you would have had if you were in that same situation. And that's not to say that again, love my job and love the situation, but the weight, and that's really the impact of burnout on the day-to-day life, is the weight of it. Just I'm glad I didn't have that in a time when I went to Ireland and had a wonderful time. I got this derby hat, feeling good.
Very nice.
Got a little Irish trinket. I was
Okay.
born in Germany, so we went to Germany next, and
Okay.
I got to have a very needed experience just for myself, and after leaving prior experiences, which helped a lot alleviate a lot of the weight. Seeing my mom have a really powerful experience in a German square where she just looked around and she could feel the weight and she started tearing up. It's just like gave her a hug, just let her have it, because like she raised her first child there in that same place. So it was one where allowing yourself to be happy is another part of the opportunities that come out of burnout. And I know that's one of the topics that we have for later, but I think that's one of those understandings of when you finally understand and walk away from it, there's a lot more things in life to really acknowledge and enjoy.
You know, and I absolutely love how you notice how your mom was impacted because of being able to go over to another country, right where she raised her first child at, and that she was impacted by standing there in the square and looking around and taking it in. And imagine if she was weighted down by burnout and feeling heavy and stressed and thinking about back home where I got to get home and get to work or whatever else she needs to do, would she be able to take that in to the degree that she did? No.
Definitely not.
If she was, that stat that I read, about 50% of anxiety and depression stems from this. If a person has gone over and they're on a cruise and they want to enjoy that cruise, and they want to take in, even thinking back about maybe I went on that cruise 5 years ago and it was absolutely amazing. But if they go 5 years in the future and they are all weighted down with anxiety and depression and the cares of this life, it will not be the same. You can take your body and uproot it from a job or uproot it. I'm very involved in, the community work and all, and very involved in the church work and all that. Well, I could take myself, like I've taken myself from Michigan and planted myself down here in Raleigh, North Carolina, in another community with another church and community opportunities to serve. But do you know, if I came from Michigan with a lot of weight, when I say weight, I mean emotional baggage and burnout and stress and all that, and I've carried it down here into those settings that I said that I am volunteering and serving in, I would not be affected, even though I'm highly, highly prepared, highly skilled, highly educated, and ready to walk in and do some damage. But I won't be able to do anything if I am in burnout mode just because I think I came from Michigan all prepared and packed and ready. It doesn't work that way. First of all, you've got to recognize the weight that's holding you down. Then, and only then, will you be able to transition into the next stage of where your life is taking you. And that's where I see you at now, Wayne. I see you so much happier. I've known you for a few years now. And when you came on the screen, I said, he looked to me, I was saying in my head, he looks like a whole nother person, and very lighter and everything. So I appreciate you coming on and being transparent with us tonight about your transition and what it has done for you and all, because listen, I believe that there's nothing new under the sun. In Ecclesiastes chapter number 9, it talks about how there is a time and a season for everything, and there's nothing new under the sun, meaning that people will go through just what you're going through, Wayne. And the people that are up the road waiting to go through what you're going through, they need to hear this so they'll already kind of have an idea of how to approach the situation even before they walk into it. Because if nothing's new under the sun, like bell bottoms, back when in the 70s when I was growing up, there were big bell bottoms on the pants. And we had shoes with like stacks. The heel was like this high. I kid you not. Big old shirts with big collars on them. People thought, well, that stuff will never come back around. Do you know that stuff has came back around and people think it's a style again? That's
Oh
that's
man.
what I mean by nothing new under the sun. What goes around comes around. Now it might come back in a different way or packaged
That's
different.
funny.
It might be packaged differently, but it's going to come back around. And so that is why we've got to be prepared to recognize the burnout, and we got to be prepared to actually make some tough decisions, which is our next talking point.
Ooh, there we go.
Sometimes reaching for the light means making tough decisions, like shedding responsibilities or even stepping away from something that you once loved. It's not easy. It wasn't easy for me to leave Michigan and come down to Raleigh. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Do you know, Wayne, that it was necessary for the growth of me and my young adult children that we transitioned from Michigan when we did? Growth opportunities. Difficulties, wasn't easy, very scary. I didn't know anybody down here, and people down here didn't know me from a can of paint. But when I started painting with that brush,
I like that.
people started recognizing, and I was showing up where I was supposed to be. And I'm thankful. Wayne, what advice would you give to someone standing at the crossroads, trying to decide whether to move on?
I would ask them to weigh where they want to be and who they thought they wanted to be. And I think those are the two biggest understandings, because even if things go wrong, there's a vision of yourself of who you want to be. But there's also the projection of where you can be in those opportunities. But it's what are you okay with letting go? And I think that's the big thing, as well as, especially tough decisions, admitting that you were wrong. It just didn't work out that way. And that really, let's be honest, you really only get one chance at a lot of things.
That's right.
If you get second chances and third chances, then it's not necessarily really chances. It's just things that come along that are just open to you. But life is lifing, and it doesn't happen many times. Right. So just understanding that no matter how you want to reset a situation, the only thing that you can control is where you go from there. And that's linking back to your growth opportunities of this door closed. We've all closed thousands of doors.
That's right.
And it's always been okay. I think that's been the really big thing. That's something I'm personally going through. I have a ring around my neck as a personal reminder to actually listen. It's something that I acknowledged I messed up, but moving forward, I'm not going to put myself in a situation where I'm so burnt out that I'm a walking blob and only hear what someone's saying to me after they're gone.
That's
like,
good.
No.
That's good. And the visual reminder of that around your neck. It reminds me of something I do with my clients as an outpatient therapist. I actually have them having some type of tangible reminder so that it can actually trigger them. All triggers aren't bad triggers. It can trigger them to say that this is the right course that I need to be on. Kevin has another question that he wrote in the chat. He wants to know, what 5 steps can you offer someone that always needs steps to follow?
As far as dealing with burnout and moving, understanding it and moving on, I would say find nutrition, which is drinking and eating. I'm someone that I'm 6'5". I'm a hangry person, but I also know that no one can really make the best decisions when they're thirsty or hungry. So those are always a big thing. Second is sleeping, whether it is a nap or 6 to 8 hours, that type of thing, because especially when you're wanting to make a decision on understanding burnout, if you're tired and sleep deprived, it's not going to help. You're going to have all sorts of crazy ideas and thoughts that aren't going to be conducive at all. So getting rest, I would say, it'd be the second step. So find the nutrients to be able to sustain yourself. Get some rest. 3, talk to someone, whether it is a professional, whether it is your stuffed animal, whether it's your pet, whether it's your friend. Talk to someone. I definitely prefer the more serious that you feel it is, the more distant the person from you should be, just because loved ones are really going to be there for you. Best friends are really going to push you, but they may be along for the ride. A therapist will tell you to your face you're wrong. And that's what I found to be the most biggest thing in understanding when I'm right and when I'm wrong, is having someone who is a completely different person from a completely different experience saying, like, this doesn't make any sense, or yeah, you really shouldn't do that, as opposed to someone who loves me and things like that. So that really helps. I would say the fourth would be write down all your thoughts, especially when dealing with burnout, because that helps you understand really what is burning you out. In writing down my thoughts, I was really able to find out that I was trying to create structure in a place that did not want structure, as opposed to it being this and it being that. It was actually, when you write it all down, these are the things that really stand out. So that component of writing it down. And then 5, acknowledging that that's all you can control and nothing else. And that would be it. I didn't write those down, so I just said that off the top of my head. So if someone did remember those nutrients, yeah.
Then type them in the chat for us. Type them in the chat, and then I'll put it in the bottom of the description. If you put the note on that, Kevin, or anyone else is watching, maybe someone is way over in Afghanistan that's watching, because this airs globally. If you caught what Wayne said, type it in the chat, and I will write that down in the bottom of the description. There is a research that when I was preparing for this discussion tonight, and I came across this. It's a really good point. And it says a 2022 McKinsey report found that 40% of employees cited burnout as the top reason for leaving their jobs during the Great Resignation. I think of a teacher that I once knew that loved her students. She just loved them dearly. But she realized that her own health and her family were suffering. She decided to transition into curriculum design, which allowed her to continue working passionately in the career that she loved, but it also removed that classroom stress from her. So, Wayne, what are some ways that people can approach these tough decisions?
Again, talking to someone, but also getting out of the space that you're in naturally on a day-to-day time and basis, I would say, is a good way, just because when you're in a room every single day, the thoughts that are bouncing around in your head are naturally just going to be bouncing around out there. So if you're out going for a walk, again, for me, that's why I love having dogs, is because they force me to go for a walk. Otherwise, I would just be sitting and stewing. So that's been a really good understanding outlet. I found a lot of really cool places that my friends have taken me to. One is creating pottery and different things. Actually, I have one of my friends had a birthday party, and
Mhm.
it was one of the I can't it's where you create little ceramics. That's what it is. Yes. I forgot the word. So it's just taking the time to even paint. Like I'm not a crafty person, but you could look at this and be like, oh, Wayne is very artsy. And I'm not. I'm not at all. So just getting outside of your comfort zone, I think, is a good way of explaining that. Just because it forces you to learn something new, it forces you to think differently.
Mhm.
And when you think differently, then even looking at the burnout feels different too. So
And I like the way you showed the things that you worked on, the crafts that you just showed us on the screen, because that is one way that when you're pivoting into something new, there's going to always be a void there. And when there's a void there, there's some, oftentimes we as human beings, we're going to be drawn to the negative thing, thinking, I shouldn't have did that. Why did I make that decision? I'm just a loser. Nothing's going to come out of this. This is too hard. But guess what? If you replace that thing that's empty with something such as crafting, just as simple as crafting, you sit down and you take your mind off of all those negative thoughts that are running through it, and you begin to create something beautiful out of that clay, and you paint it, and you sit there and you watch how it turns into something. Guess what that does for you? It actually de-stresses you. It
mhm.
actually helps you to deal with the uncertainties that you're going through. And how? Because it actually resets your mind. We talked about that lotus flower that resets itself when that goes under the water at night. Well, sometimes we need to be reset. And how do we do that? Just by what you showed us, doing a craft, going fishing, reading a book.
Oh,
I'm sure you probably get reset when you're doing Wayne Reads and you're reading those books to children,
oh
and
yeah.
you're and it's such a light, happy time. Learn to reset yourselves. You're asking questions now in the chat. Why should I do these things? Or how can I go about doing these things? Sometimes you just got to let go. Sometimes you're not going to have all the answers, and it's not going to be written like on a piece of paper, A, B, C, D, and E. Sometimes you just have to trust by faith and
Hmm.
your gut instinct that you're doing the right thing, and you step out there and watch. You're going to walk on water. You're going to be just fine. Just like Wayne did, you took a great risk at saying, I am transitioning into something else for my own well being. Sometimes it takes a risk in order for us to grow and transition and pivot into something new. We've got to be willing to go into uncharted territory at times. Growth opportunities is what I'm calling it, growth opportunities. So, Wayne, your story is so inspiring. It's an example of how burnout can lead to new opportunities, like the lotus flower rising above the water. And you found that pivoting into something new brought you joy and fulfillment. Now, can you share with our audience tonight, how has your journey unfolded for you since you have pivoted into something new?
Well, it's one where there's not as much stress. Definitely, there's not as much stress. Um, but there's also this excitement for what's going to happen tomorrow and the day after that, because it's not as rigid, it's not as structured, and I have time for things. The amount of times that I've said this week alone, I can't wait for the summer just to be able to have fun. Um, being under, like I mentioned, got a new home, so investing time here is also a big thing. My dogs are getting, my eldest dog is getting a little bit older, so just understanding that the next 4 or 5 years that I have him, I want to enjoy every single day. And I wouldn't have that opportunity if I was rushing around to work and back and doing all this stuff. So it's one where being able to pivot into something new, the Shel Silverstein shorts wouldn't have really done that if I hadn't have been just sitting there and just been like, well, I just try something new. For the Runaway Warlords YouTube channel, there's a skit / Harry Potter thing that I'm really thinking about trying. I just have to get enough time to get everything to set up accordingly. But again, that's going to be this summer when I have a lot more time to run around. Yeah, it's one where in this pivot and in this fresh new understanding, I'm able to hit a reset. As I mentioned earlier, I went to Europe with family, and that was a really good breakthrough of the burnout. But at the same time, it was a huge reset for me personally, because at that point I was decoupling my personality and my sense of self away from being a higher academic individual, because I'd done that for 14 years, literally over 3/4 of my life, almost 2/3 of my life almost. So having that as a hard reset and allowing all literal, like, who are you going to be as a person, hit that button, reset time, and understanding that, yeah, once that button's hit, it's not that everything that happened before it wasn't important. It wasn't that all those things didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean if it doesn't hurt the impact of it all being truly real, but it doesn't also take away from the fact that you do need to move forward. And what greater disgrace of what you had than not being able to move forward after closing the door. And it's tough. I would say that's the toughest decision, is leaving it all behind and understanding that personally. But there's a little bit of excitement in what's going to happen next. So it's a balance. It's a huge balance of excitement, but also it's sad. It's sad. It's good to be happy because you're a little sad.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how exciting was it when you left and transitioned into what you're doing now?
Oh, I would say at the time it was not exciting. It was terrifying. It was a 1 as far as exciting. I will be completely honest. It was a solid 1. I was like, but I think it was like that again after wow, here we go. After really eating, and I remember my family and we went out to eat. We had something. I got a lot of rest and I slept a lot. I talked to some really important people and I wrote down all my thoughts. And then it became a 10 because I started off like, I have no idea what's about to happen because it's literally been my entire adult life. Mm-hmm. But after thinking of going through all those steps, I was able to just say, you know what, that's what I can control. Mm-hmm. I'm an educator. I can still go into the education field. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Answers it for sure. And I heard you say about support. You had a supportive network. Oh. Your mom, your friends, yes, and others.
Yeah. It's one where my mom and my sister being there for the trip to Europe was huge. Had ups and we had downs as a family traveling together, but we also had a lot of fun. And we became a lot closer. Mm-hmm. My family and friends, like, I needed one of my friends to be like, why do you have to go home? You ain't got nothing to do. And I'm like, I needed someone to just say that to my face. Like, it was one of those moments where good. Instead of just being like, it's just like, yeah.
So how important is support when going through this pivoting period?
It's incredibly important, but the thing is, you have to listen.
Okay.
That's also the biggest thing.
Okay.
I'll admit I'm one of the most stubborn of all people, but again, that's what I learned is you need to listen.
Expound on that.
Especially if it's about you.
Expound on what you mean by you have to listen. Can you please kind of flesh that out a bit more for us?
Well, you have your own idea of what's happening and the things that are going on, but you truly need to listen to what people are saying to you, or not just what you think you're hearing, um, to be able to really move forward. Like, especially when it's on criticism about yourself.
Okay,
There can definitely be disagreements, but there's also a sliver of truth in what people are telling you.
I
And if
see.
you're not open to hearing something that you may be wrong about, or about you that you may not like, I don't think that you're going to be ready for to get through burnout, to be
And
completely honest.
that you're exactly right. I agree 100%. And the growth opportunity will be rather hard to embrace when you don't pivot the way in which you shared, and other areas as well. This, believe me, this isn't everything, but this is definitely a really good start for you
Oh,
all to listen, take note, and move forward with. Now, I'm going to share with you right now. I'm going to share an illustrated example. And it was that a 2023 LinkedIn survey found that 61% of professionals who made a career pivot reported being happier in their new roles. One of my clients transitioned from a corporate job starting at making over $100,000 a year. This woman transitioned to a small business, took some L's, but she was so much happier. Although she was terrified and she just really didn't know what the future was going to hold. But after she hung in there, she reaped the rewards of her decision, pivoting. Now, Wayne is telling us about how he pivoted and how he started at a one because he was uncertain, but he put some things in place, had a support system there for him. And in doing so, he went from a one, not just shot right up to a 10, because I'm sure there was some steps in there that got him to the 10. But he found after pivoting that he was so much joyful, and joy comes from inside. Joy is different from happiness. Happiness goes and happiness comes based on what's going on in the moment. But when you got joy, I once have been told that the joy of the Lord is our strength, and joy is something that's intrinsic. And that is what Wayne has found. And that is what many of you have found when you were in a burnout place and you allowed yourself to pivot. And that is what we want you all that are at the crossroads tonight to embrace. As I bring Wayne back on and we transition to a close, our last point will be exploring the opportunities beyond burnout. You mean to tell me, Dr. Pamela, that there are opportunities to explore beyond burnout? I'm going to have Wayne tell you all what are the opportunities that are awaiting you beyond burnout.
awesome. Awesome. Um, when thinking about exploring opportunities beyond burnout, I think it really does come down to what did you what do you think about yourself, and what did you think you wanted to do, going back to those prior instances I brought up earlier.
Mhm.
um I'm doing a lot more cooking now, and that's turning into more of structuring my food cycles and different things like that.
Mhm.
Definitely getting more into skits with things like that. With how my voice is being structured and how people are reacting to it, I'm also thinking about doing a third channel that's more spoken word songs. So
Okay.
just having that aspect of not singing, but having a deeper voice in those type of things, where maybe a SZA song is like spoken word from my voice. Who knows? People may want to hear that. So it's also knowing that something's going to fail, and also understanding that, and this is the big thing about getting past burnout, is failure is okay. Like, I have failed more than most people ever have. Like, no matter if you're in your 90s or if you're in your teens, like, I am someone who tried a lot of things because of the opportunities that were available to me. And while I didn't understand that was part of like encapsulating burnout and things like that, I still am a better person because I've maintained all of the things that I learned and understanding how that's going to help me grow. So understanding that everything you've been through, that's the biggest thing, was not wrong, was not horrible, is something that is now part of you, whether you like it or not. It's just how you interpret it as far as you want to move forward. And also understanding that even in this interpretation of yourself moving forward, that you're going to have things wrong. You're going to mess up. You're not going to be perfect. And when you're no longer chasing perfection, but at least wanting to work in a manner that can elude a perfected product, I think that is a balance that someone may have to take. And I'm glad that I've realized that at 37, just turned. So not just starting off, but as literally a millennial right in the middle, it's also being able to understand what are things that I didn't think I wanted to do. I'm not a cruise person. I'm not a cruise person. Sorry. It's just being on a boat for me is just like, but
You're
my
not.
family. No.
Oh, you just don't know what you're missing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
But my family wants to take a cruise in Asia, and I'm like, you know what?
Oh.
I'm not going to say no. Like, that's also, I could be completely wrong about the experience. I could be right, and I hope I'm not, but I could be completely wrong. And it's understanding that I would love to be wrong. Let's try this out.
That's right. And that's where the exploring opportunities comes in at. In order to have an opportunity, we got to get out there and do the opportunity. It's not just going to come and fall down into our laps. We got to take ourselves where it is, don't we? That's what we have to do. Now, burnout can look like it's the end, can it? It looks like it's just the end and nothing else is going to come of it. But just like that lotus that I talked about, remember I talked about that little flower and it's under that little seed starts up under there and all that heavy stuff is on this little bitty seed. And it looks like, it's over. Backs against the wall, lost everything. People walked out on you. People are cheating on you. People are having extramarital affairs. Racism is going on. We've got all kind of isms and schisms going on. People are throwing haterade at you. People are saying you are crazy for making that decision. Just all types of noise inside of our heads. I call that noise in the head. We've got to know that those things are weighty and they can stop us from those opportunities that we need to explore. How do you shut those things down? Just what Wayne had told us throughout this whole series tonight. He taught us richly on how to shut down the noise, take the risk, might take some L's. Life gonna be lifing. Step on into it. Don't be afraid. Do some things. Get a support system. Listen to that inner voice, that intrinsic voice. Then move forward. Even if it means that you may have to take a setback, a pay cut, lose some friends, lose a whole community I lost. Not lost in a bad way, but lost by choice. When I moved from Michigan, where I had lived over 40 years, I came down to a place that I did know something about. I attended the seminary here in Durham, North Carolina, and my son went to North Carolina A&T in Greensboro, so I knew some things about it, but I had never lived here. I left what I knew and came to a foreign place. When I got here, I knew that I was going to show up in my space because I was willing to take the risk and I was willing to actually put myself on hold for a moment and discover those opportunities that were far beyond me. And I looked and I had wisdom and I waited and I pivoted and I did all the things that Wayne said and some more. And I landed right where I needed to be. And I am so grateful that I did. And I am so joyful. As we transition to a close, I had a client once tell me that she was so grateful that I pushed her. I heard Wayne say that, yeah, you might have a relative that loves you dearly that will walk alongside you every step of the way. You know, Mama and her boys, she loves those boys. Even when they're men, she's going to be right there with them. And then you have good friends that are going to be right there by your side. But I heard Wayne say that it's going to take a therapist. That means in somebody that's outside of your immediate circle that's willing to say, no, that's not right. Or yes, you do that. Move into that spot and not sugarcoat it. And that's what I had, and that's what I needed. And I'm grateful that you, Wayne, have come on tonight and you have been so transparent. I am so grateful. And I want to thank you for sharing your story and for sharing your insights with us tonight. Your journey is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there's always an opportunity for renewal. To our viewers, I thank you for tuning in. I sincerely thank you for tuning in each and every Thursday, and now even doing our special series on Fridays, the first and third Fridays. So I want to remind you all, please don't forget to join us next Thursday for another transformative and inspiring episode of the Lotus Flower Podcast. And on next Friday, we're kicking off the next series of What's Love Got to Do with It? It has everything to do with it. Myself and my co-host, Kevin Andrews, aka Dr. Love, will be coming to you once again with that transformative series. Now, until next time, I want you to remember that it is the flower that blooms in adversity that is the greatest of them all. The lotus flower. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight begins a new journey for most of us, even myself. I'm at a place where I'm at a good spot in my life, but I'm still at a place where growth is necessary because I am a lifelong learner. Even though I have achieved a doctorate degree, I am, and written 3 books, I am a lifelong learner. The plane is still flying. It hasn't landed and it won't land. And for you, Wayne, your plane is flying. Soar high, my friend. Don't ever see a ceiling. There's no ceiling, not even a glass ceiling. The sky is the limit to what you can have.
I appreciate that
so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being you. And thank you for not being a monolith. Thank you for standing and being unique. That's what I like about you. I want you to go ahead and share with my audience anything that I may not have asked you prior to ending this podcast tonight.
I think everything has been covered. It's been a really good conversation. I feel better just having this conversation. It's one of those where it's just like, oh, I didn't even think I needed that conversation. Now I do. Oh, that's good to know. Anyone who wants, I have daily videos. There will be daily videos until March. And in March, I will be starting Redwall. It's apparently a series that a lot of my friends have talked me into reading. That's another really cool thing, is that I'm open for people to be like, read this book. And I'm like, okay, as long as you read, watch along with me, we'll be fine. So it's been one that a lot of cool things are happening. And I'm really glad that this is a place where I can really not only verbalize closing a lot of those doors, but also visualize for me personally all the new ones coming open. So thank you for having me. And hey, feel free to check out Wayne Reads and the Runaway Warlords.
That's right. Thank you. And go ahead and give us the links to for those. Do you have the actual link that they would type in at YouTube at the signal?
I can get those really quick just because they're readily available. Okay. So the at Runaway Warlords, Is there a chat for me to?
Yeah, you can type it right there in the chat.
This is private chat.
Yes, and then I'll get it to them right here.
There's
there
that.
You are. Okay.
And then Wayne reads.
Copy it right into here and paste it right over to the other one.
There you go.
Okay, here we are. I've got that in the chat for you all. And then we'll go the other chat. And this is for Wayne Weeds. I want you all to go ahead and I want you all to do me a favor. Now, you know I don't ask much of my audience, but I'm going to ask this tonight for my friend Wayne. I want his subscribers to go past the 500, okay? I want his subscribers this year to go to 1,500. So I know I have a lot of subscribers out there, so I want my subscribers to become his subscribers. So you have both of the links. You have the link here to one of his channels, and you have link here to the other channel. Go ahead and peruse those channels, and as you're perusing, be sure to like, comment, and to subscribe. This podcast is here to be a blessing for my audience and a blessing for my guests. So thank you all once again, my guests, for joining me. And thank you most importantly, Wayne, for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
May you have a blessed rest of the evening. And also may what you're going through right now in terms of that transition bloom and blossom so much so that you begin to drop little seedlings down on other people and they'll begin to catch hold to what you're doing and they'll bloom and blossom just like you, because that's what a good mentor does. Is that correct?
It is. It is. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in a few months maybe.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Good night for now. Yes. My special guest tonight was none other than Wayne Bond. Wayne Bond came on this evening and he shared with us richly about burnout. And for that, we are so grateful. He shared with us in such a transformative way, and he was so transparent. And for that, tonight's podcast has been astounding. And I am grateful for this global platform that the Lord has given me. Once again, I do want to be sure to mention, save the date. Save the date for next Friday. Next Friday, again, myself and Elder Kevin Andrews, aka Dr. Love, will be coming back with another installment of our transformative series, What's Love Got to Do with It? It has everything to do with it. So tune in right here on the Dr. Pamela Robinson Facebook page, on the Lotus Flower YouTube channel, and on the Kevin Andrews Facebook channel, and on the @Kevin Andrews 6041 YouTube channel, or wherever you get your audio podcast. Stay tuned because better is on the way. Be sure to like, comment, and to subscribe to the Lotus Flower Podcast. In doing so, each time one of these episodes drop, it will show up right there in your inbox. Thank you all for joining me this evening once again, and may you be richly blessed as you bloom and blossom throughout all of your life situations, because life be lifing. Good night.